Hi everyone, thanks for the invitation. I'm Quentin Bertrand from INRIA. I'm a last year PhD student under the supervision of Joseph Salmon and Alexandre Granfort. And today I will talk about support recovery for sparse pivotal estimators. So what are pivotal estimators? These are estimators for which the regularization parameter is independent from the noise level. So basically, today I'm going to talk about lasso, or more precisely, variants of the lasso, which are pivotal. And before going further, I have to mention that this is joint work with Mathurin Macias from University of Genova. First, I will present some motivations because I work in a neuroimaging team with EEG and MEG data, which are very specific. So I will present the challenge specific to this data. Then I will make some recalls on how to calibrate the regularization parameter for the lasso, at least from a theoretical point of view. And then we will see if this regularization parameter calibration can generalize to other estimators. Finally, I will present some experiments on real MEG data. So first, I work in a neuroimaging team with EEG and MEG data, which stands for electroencephalographical and magnetoencephalographical data. It consists in recordings of the electrical activity and magnetical activity at the surface of the head. Okay? So basically what you do is that you put your head in one of these big machines and you're asked to perform a cognitive task, such as watching a movie or hearing a noise. And the goal is to find back which sources, which part of the brain are responsible for the observed signal. Okay, so the machine records the electrical activity at the surface of the head, and the goal is to recover the sources in the brain that are responsible for these signals. So in a very concrete way, this is what you have. One time series per sensor on the head. Okay, you have three different sensors with three different units, and this is called multimodal data, and this is part of the challenge of handling MEG data. So this is what you have, one time series per sensor on the head, and what you want is to recover which parts of the brain are responsible for the observed signal. So what you want is to recover the intensity of the current in each part of the brain. So what you do is that you discretize the brain in little cubes called voxel, and you want to recover the intensity of the current in each little cube, okay? And you want to recover the intensity all across the experiment. So you want to recover a full matrix B, and each line of this matrix corresponds to the intensity across the experiment from one voxel, from one little cube in the brain. And of course, you want to recover the intensity all over the brain. So this is what you have. One time series per sensor on the head. And this is what you want, to recover the intensity in each little part of the brain. And thanks to the physics, what you have is linearly related to what you want. With this design matrix that can be estimated. You can have an estimation of this design matrix. So all of this was just to say that the MEG inverse problem, so finding back sources in the brain, the source localization problem, can be cast as a high-dimensional linear regression. Why high-dimensional? Because you have only a few number of sensors on the head, maybe 100, and you have multiple thousands of potential sources of potential brain localization. And the finer your discretization in the brain, okay, the smaller your little cubes in the brain, the larger the number of features, the harder the problem. Okay, now I'm going to talk about the specificity of MEG data. The first one is that these data are very, very, very noisy. So what you have to do is to repeat several times the same cognitive experiment. So for instance, you're hearing 10 or 50 times the same noise, okay? And we record the electrical activity 50 times. Okay, so you do it 1, 2, 50 times. And once you've done all these experiments, usually you average them in order to improve the signal-to-noise ratio. So here are real MEG data with a high number of repetition, 50. Here we have averaged only 5 repetitions, and you can barely see anything. You cannot see any brain response. But if you average 50 repetitions, you start to see a brain response after a stimulation at time 0. Okay, this was all just to say that MEG data are very noisy and that you have to repeat several times the same cognitive experiment to be able to see something on the data. Another specificity of MEG data is that they are contaminated with correlated Gaussian noise. Okay, here I plotted the correlation matrix of the noise for each type of sensor, and what you can see is that there are strong correlations and that the correlation structure is different for each type of sensor. So all of this was just to say that our problem, the source localization problem, can be cast as a linear regression, which is a little bit special because you have multiple value, multiple observation matrix, which are the product of a known matrix B and an unknown matrix B star, plus some correlated Gaussian noise. And what's very important here to see in our model, what is very, very strong, is that for each repetition of the cognitive experiment, we suppose that the brain response beta is the same. Okay, and we want to estimate this brain response. So as I say, we have a Hill-Posed inverse problem, and we want to solve it. A typical way of doing it is to use sparse penalties. Okay, and if you do this, if you add an L1 norm here up on your coefficient beta, you will recover this kind of matrix. Okay, and here, as I said before, each line corresponds to a time series of the intensity of the current for one localization in the brain. Here in orange are the non-zero coefficients. And what you can see, for instance, for this line, is that here, this part of the brain is non-active, then active, non-active, non-active, active, non-active, active, etc. And this is not what you want. What you would like is something more like this, where you have only a few sources in the brain that are active all across the experiment. And this can be achieved with group lasso penalty, for instance, L2-1 penalty. So just to summarize, this is what you have. One time series per sensor on the head. This is what you want to recover which part of the brain are responsible for the observed signals. And this can be typically done using optimization-based estimators. Okay, using sparsity. Okay, so now I'm going to make some recalls for the calibration of the lasso in one dimension, okay, with vectors. So here y is a vector and beta is a vector. I have my linear regression model. And for the lasso, this estimator, where you have a quadratic data fitting term and an L1 penalty, what you can show is that if you add strong statistical assumption, then your regularization parameter will be proportional to the true noise level. Okay. But your true noise level is unknown in practice. So what people did is that they came up with another estimator, which is called the square root lasso. So why square root? Because for the lasso, you have a quadratic data fitting term. And for the square root lasso, you just took the square root of this quadratic data fitting term. And for the square root lasso, what you can show is that you have almost the same statistical property, but your regularization parameter, your optimal regularization parameter, does not depend on the true noise level anymore. Okay, and we can illustrate this theorem. So if I take the lasso here with a quadratic data fitting term, and I plot the best lambda chosen by cross-validation as a function of one of the signal-to-noise ratio, which is proportional to the true noise level, what you can see is a linear fit, okay, a linear tendance. But if you take the square root lasso here, so if you take the estimator with the square root of the quadratic term, the best lambda, the best regularization parameter chosen by cross-validation depends far less on the true noise level. Okay, so this illustrates the theorem before. So what you have, the square root lasso, is an estimator which has better statistical property. Okay, but from an optimization point of view, it's composed of two terms which are both non-smooth. Okay, and it makes the optimization process much harder. The idea is to replace this non-smooth data fitting term with a smooth approximation of it. Okay, this one. If you do this, you end up with an optimization problem with an additional variable. Okay, now you minimize over beta and a new variable sigma. So I will just detail this smoothing procedure. So what you do, you have your non-smooth L1 now, and what you do is that you just take a smooth approximation of it, okay? And your smoothing parameter just say how close you want to be from your non-smooth function and how smooth you are. And you can approach it by the bottom, and you can also approach your non-smooth function by the top. Okay, and that's what we do. All of this was just to say that if you replace your non-smooth L2 norm by a smooth approximation, you end up on this optimization problem, which is remarkably jointly convex in beta and sigma. Okay, and it's very, very important because you have something which is jointly convex, which is smooth, and thus you can apply efficient techniques called alternate minimization or coordinate descent techniques. So basically what we do to solve this optimization problem is that you use iterative algorithms, and at each step, you do not solve full lasso, but you just do one pass of coordinate descent on all the features. You do one pass of coordinate descent on all the features, and you update your residuals. Okay. Yeah. And what you end up doing is very, very natural. is that you update your coefficient, beta, and you update your estimation of the noise level. Okay, what you can see here is that it is exactly the noise level, the standard deviation. Okay, so what you do is that you alternately have an estimation of your coefficient and an estimation of the standard deviation. So just to summarize what we did, we had an estimator, the square root lasso, which had better statistical properties. It was too hard to solve in practice, so we slightly modified this estimator. And the question is, what is the impact of the smoothing on the statistical properties? Okay, do we keep this support recovery and subnorm convergence? The other question is how to choose this smoothing parameter, okay? Because a priori, you're just introducing a new hyperparameter. And the last question is, can this estimator generalize? So this estimator with an unknown noise level generalize to models with an unknown covariance matrix. Okay, so can you find a generalization of this estimator for correlated Gaussian noise? That's the question. So for the first question, what is the impact of the smoothing on the statistical properties? The answer is the following, is that if you choose your smoothing parameter sufficiently small, okay, basically smaller more or less than the true noise level, then you will have support recovery properties. Okay, you have subnorm convergence and support recovery, and you keep the fact that your regularization parameter is independent from the true noise level. So just a little figure to illustrate this. So now for my square root lasso or smoothed square root lasso beta, it depends on two hyperparameters. The regularization parameter, of course, lambda, and the smoothing parameter. For each value of lambda and sigma underscore here, I computed beta, and I computed a metric on beta. Here I choose the hard recovery loss, okay? And so here in each graph, you have for each couple lambda beta, you have the hard recovery loss. For each couple lambda sigma, sorry, you have the hard recovery loss on beta. So it tells you whether it recovers the support or not. And what you can see here is that the influence of lambda is huge, meaning that if lambda is too high or too small, you do not recover the support. Okay? And this is the case everywhere. But if you choose it relatively well, you can recover the support. What you have to see on this graph is that the influence of the smoothing parameter is very, very low. And in fact, if you're smaller than the true noise level here, the smoothing parameter has no influence. Okay, so it is just to illustrate the theorem of before, that if your smoothing parameter is smaller than the true noise level, then you don't care. The recovery property does not depend on it. And what you can see also is that the optimal lambda does not change that much when I vary the signal to noise ratio, meaning when I vary the true noise level. Okay, so here we answered the first two questions, which was the impact of the smoothing. Okay, basically, if you do not smooth too much, it's okay. The statistical properties are conserved. and it also tells you how to choose your smoothing parameter. And the last question is, can we choose, can we generalize this estimator? Can we generalize, in fact, this procedure of smoothing a data fitting term and make it more easy to solve in practice and to analyze from a theoretical point of view? So here I'm going to talk about what is called the multivariate square root lasso, which was introduced by Sarah van der Gier. And this estimator is a sum of a nuclear norm, which is non-smooth, plus an n-to-1 norm here. Okay, and it's hard to solve in practice because it's a non-smooth plus non-smooth optimization problem, and the statistical assumption, the statistical analysis is not that easy. In fact, it's very hard. And what we will see is that you can smooth the data fitting term, and it makes things much more easy. Okay, so one first technical thing is that if you take your nuclear norm, which is non-smooth, you can have a smooth approximation of it. Okay, if you take the inf convolution with a quadratic norm, you can end up with something like a Huber formula for the nuclear norm. Yeah. Okay, and if I apply it to the multivariate square root lasso, I end up with this optimization problem. And what is great with this optimization problem is that, again, it is remarkable, but it is jointly convex. Okay. So, as before, I smooth my data fitting term. I end up with a new optimization problem. Before, I end up adding one variable. Here, I'm still adding a new variable, S, but it's not a scalar, it's a full matrix n times n. Okay, so we just have to be aware that when you're using these estimators, in fact, you're estimating a matrix of size n times n, and you only have n times the number of time points of observations. And what you can do is that for this estimator, for your smoothed multivariate square root lasso, you can also show that if your smoothing parameter is smaller than your noise level, then your regularization parameter lambda will not depend on the true noise level. And with high probability, you will have subnorm convergence and support recovery. And what's interesting here, and I think what's important, is that in this probability here, you have a ratio T over N, and this is expected because you're estimating N times N covariance matrix. Okay, so it comes from the Gaussian concentration, and I don't know if you can do better than this for this estimator, at least. Okay, and as before, if I choose a tuple lambda sigma underscore, I can compute my regression coefficient. Okay, and if I plot the hard recovery loss of my regression coefficient as a function of lambda and sigma underscore, I have the same plot as before, which tells that lambda has a strong influence on the recovery, but your smoothing parameter, providing that it is smaller than the true noise level, then it does not depend on the smoothing parameter. Okay. Okay, a last question is, can we take advantage of the structure of the problem? Okay, can we take advantage of this repetition in the EEG and MEG data? And the answer is yes, Okay. In fact, if you look at these two estimators, they are not the same. Okay. And we will see that one is better, much better than the other in the experiment. And just to emphasize the differences, here you just fit the mean, where here your zeta fit is the mean of the quadratic term. Okay, so just to summarize, what we did is that we had a non-smooth plus non-smooth optimization problem. We smoothed the data fitting term. You end up with a jointly convex optimization problem, okay, which can be solved efficiently using block coordinate descent, and you can use all the classical acceleration trick of optimization, okay, screening rules, strong proof, active set methods, etc. And I think that's why it's very, very important, and that's what makes the optimization much faster. Coordinate descent plus active set method. Okay, just a word on the update rule. Before, at each time for the square root lasso, you were estimating your coefficient and your noise level. And here, in an alternating way, you're estimating your coefficient and your covariance matrix. Okay? So if B is fixed, what you have is basically your covariance matrix, your covariance estimation, where you clipped the singular value to sigma. And that's it. Okay. We just saw that if you had an estimator with an unknown correlation matrix, an estimator with you just have an estimator for models with unknown correlated noise. Okay, here I will show some experiments. Okay, so this is an experiment with simulated data. Okay, I fixed X as a Toeplitz correlated matrix, and I also add noise with a Toeplitz correlated matrix. What I do is I plot ROC curve. Okay, so I choose, I fixed sigma underscore. Okay, this is fixed. And I choose a grid of lambda, okay, and I solve my optimization problems for each value of lambda. For each value of lambda, I have regression coefficients beta, and for each of these beta, I can compute two metrics, the false positive rates and the true positive rates, okay? And the goal for the methods is to hit the 0, 1 corner, okay, to have 0 false positive and 1 true positive rate. And what you see is that if the true noise, if the correlation in the noise is 0, there is no point of using fancy estimators, okay, that take into account the correlation in the noise. Here, all these estimators take into account the correlations, and this one is just the classical multitask lasso, which does not take into account the correlation. But what you see is that as soon as the correlation increases, the correlation in the noise, it's worth using estimators that are designed to handle correlated Gaussian noise. Okay, this is what you can see here. Okay. And you can see the same phenomena for the number of repetitions. Here, the estimators taking advantage of the repetitions are the estimators with the triangles. Yeah. Okay. And what you can see is that if you have only one repetition, okay, of course, there is no point using this algorithm. But as soon as the number of repetitions increase, you can see that the estimators with the triangles, taking into account the repetitions, behave better. Okay, finally, these are experiments on real data. And so after an auditory stimulation, you expect two sources in the brain, one in each hemisphere. Okay, and if you set your regularization parameter to have two sources, such that your algorithm returns two sources, this is what the multitask lasso, which does not take into account the correlation, returns you. You have two sources here that are correlated just one next to the other, and this is not what you would expect from a physiological point of view. What you would expect from a physiological point of view is to have one sources in each part of the brain. And this is what is recovered with this algorithm. And we also did it for all the other estimators that were proposed. And what you can see is that if you do not take into account the repetitions, your algorithm does not work well. Okay, you just recover meaningless sources. Okay, and what you do is that if you just do not take into account the correlation, you have correlated sources in the brain, okay, one next to the other. This is also the case for this experiment. But if you use this one, you recover one sources in each hemisphere of the brain, which is expected from a physiological point of view. Okay, just to conclude, we provided a statistical analysis of a smoothed version of the estimators, okay, of some estimators. It provided guidelines on how to calibrate this new smoothing hyperparameter, okay, in addition to make the optimization process more easy. So it allowed to use estimator to handle correlated noise, and we show theoretically and empirically that it improved support identification. For our future work, we may study the influence of the smoothing parameter from an optimization point of view, or maybe if this analysis also holds for the load lasso. We have a paper and some code online if you want to try. Thank you.